Welcome to the Masters in Motion podcast, where we empower masters athletes to reach their full potential. Join us as we delve into the world of CrossFit and showcase the strength, resilience, and determination of masters athletes because we love this sport. I'm Jason Grubb with Rick Stevenson. Hey, Rick, how was your weekend?
I was a little busy, to be honest with you.
Fair enough. That was a heck of a weekend of competition for the semifinals. I know that today I'm sore, I'm beat up, I'm definitely having a hard time walking up and down the stairs.
I am sitting currently in a hotel room because I flew down this morning to get my daughter from college, and you should have seen me trying to get up out of a plane seat and into a car, and then out of the car, and that's just ahead of a long drive tomorrow. So I will be hobbling for quite a while.
Well, it's interesting that there's no rest for us masters athletes. I had a friend ask me this morning if I was taking it easy with the family after such a busy weekend, and I was like, no, I'm catching up on all the things I didn't do this weekend. I've got 100 emails to get through. I've got a bunch of errands to run, and our life is a life of travel in an RV. We're traveling tomorrow, so it was a couple of hours this afternoon of packing up the RV. So there's no rest in the masters world after a weekend like that.
What's interesting to think about it is remember they shortened it this year from last year too, I believe, right?
That is correct.
Uh,
Yep.
a day shorter. So to not having to take off as much time of work from for maybe some athletes, and still it felt like it was a very compressed and hectic schedule. Recovery. Upload everything, turn around, get ready, and do it again. It just
Oh
makes
man.
for a true competition weekend. The only problem is it's virtual. And we'll talk about that. We
Yep.
wish we were in person, but we heard from Adrian when we had him on. It's just logistically, going to be really difficult to do across the world at this stage. So
Yep.
enjoy the camera.
Yep. Enjoy the camera. We've always done it this way, and it looks like we'll do it this way for a while until we get to that 100,000 athletes per age group, and then we've got some say there, and maybe that's coming. I don't know about you. Historically, we have had those 3 days, both for quarterfinals and semifinals, and this year we had 2 days each. But I am so sore and worn out, and I was the same way from this year's quarterfinals. These tests really took a chunk out of my life. There was one. We'll talk about it when we talk about the workouts. But after one of the workouts, I was laying on the floor thinking to myself, "Man, why do I do this? This isn't fun right now." I was in so much pain. I'll just say, following 20 burpee box jump overs at the end of workout 4, that I was actually joking that this may be my retirement year, just based on that workout alone. I was in so much pain. Yeah, in only 4 events, I mean, 2 of them were double workouts, or 2 score events. The volume really, did a number on my body. Did you feel that way as well?
Well, yeah, I'm going to say volume for you because you did a heck of a lot more work than I did. But the intensity, it's the intensity for each of these that I noticed
Mm.
was in seminars. Nothing we do right now in this virtual setting replicates the intensity like these type of weekends. It's very hard to do that in training, and the open just doesn't have that same feeling. And then, when you're live on a competition floor, you can get that, but you're also looking to your left and to your right
Yeah.
with other competitors. So this virtual competition with the intensity as it is really, I think, takes a toll, not only physically but mentally as well. If you're
Yeah.
contemplating retirement, then yeah, I'd say let's start that.
Yeah.
Let's start that rumor.
Y
How about that right here?
yeah, it's never happening. Never. Never. We got another 20 years in this thing. But, yeah,
Exactly.
it's when you can't see your audience, and I know that all of those of us that competed this weekend in this virtual competition, because we feel that sense of blindness that we don't know what our competitors are doing, we don't know what they're capable of. We're trying to make an educated guess as to what is a good score on this workout. Before we do the event, after we do the event, we're trying to assess, did I do well enough? We can't when the competition is so challenging, and there's such a narrow window to qualify, you
Yeah.
can't just talk to everyone in your age group. I can't call up, the competitors in my division and say, "Hey, how did you do in this workout? Oh, you got that? Okay, good. I'm going to do it." We're not sharing each other's scores, so we're
Mm-mm.
just taking guesses. Now, I know that for me, I talk to athletes outside of my age group from time to time, and that
Hmm.
gives me a a sense of what's possible in a particular
Hmm.
workout, but it's
Right.
still it's not a fair gauge. It's very stressful. So we may even be pushing ourselves to new limits because of the fact that we're blindfolded.
Well, I'm learning when we might discuss something, I just add 2 minutes or 3 minutes onto your time, and then that puts me in my neighborhood. So it's pretty easy math right now at this stage.
Fair enough. And I actually, because I did the qualifiers with some 35-year-olds or the 35-year-old age division, there was something to what you just said. If this person in this 35-year-old age group got this score, I could count. I could say, okay, well then we've got the 40-year-olds, and now I'm 45. I'm 10 years older than these guys. It would actually give me a decent estimate as to what I should expect for myself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
I think
I
that's a
can
good
never.
idea to think about that.
Yeah.
And contrast that to you previously doing a lot of qualifiers solo in your own
Mm,
gym, not really having that kind of intelligence around you to gauge, as opposed to more of a team-based approach that you took this year,
yeah.
and had that, 10 years to your junior, and maybe you had some athletes that were slightly older, and you kind of knew where you were going to fall, but you still had to do the
Yep.
work.
And I'll say this, that in one of the events or two of the events, I was teamed up with teenage females that were qualifying for their age group spot at the games. And in two of the events, I was paired with 35-year-olds. And those were totally different people to pay. I'm not pacing off of either one of them. When I'm going up against a 14-year-old female, she is so fast. Actually, she was in the first workout. I was faster on the row because I'm larger. Mass
Hmm.
moves mass, so I was faster. But she was so fast on the shuttle runs. All I was trying to do the entire workout was not let her catch me on the shuttle runs. Even though she's rowing the same amount as me, she's catching me on these shuttle runs, and that was a bit of a battle. But what I did discover, this was the first year in 5-6 years of qualifiers that I ever had anybody next to me, and it was amazing, first of all, just to have the camaraderie of other human beings suffering at the same time. It was fun to try to pace off. Like, that was the only workout where I actually felt like I was trying to stay ahead of her because she was so fast on shuttle runs. So that was something nice there. But generally, in the future, wherever I'm at doing qualifiers, I just want to have another human being there doing the work next to me because it creates this sense of urgency and camaraderie and even a little bit of competition, or I can just make up competition in my head, like I'm going to try to stay ahead of this 14-year-old girl because she's so fast. It gave me something to do. So yeah,
Right.
it was really fun, and I know you have a pacer that has traditionally worked out
Absolutely.
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because he's younger, it's somebody that as good of an athlete as he is, I know he's probably going to be out ahead of me on most everything. So it's something that I know I need to. It's that play that pick up the pace game in your head,
Mm.
and to an uncomfortable pace. And I mean, there are times it's I can't go his speed, even though I know probably for qualification purposes I should be going, but that comes maybe back down to preparation. But having somebody there who you trust, you work with, has been very valuable over the last few years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, a couple of pieces of news that I picked up, or we all picked up. Well, we'll start
Oh
with
yeah.
one, and we'll just tell us about the leaderboard issues. What did you see and observe through the weekend? And where are we now with the leaderboard issues?
Well, to say that we're unofficial right now is an understatement. The scores, as you and I talked about last week, it was widely known that the scoring system for semifinals, as in years past, would be based on points, 100 points per event, in this case, 50 points per test. And most points would win, accumulation of points. When the leaderboard was first released at about around 4 o'clock Eastern on Saturday afternoon, the world noticed that it was based on finishes. So the fewest points, actually, your highest finish, completely threw everybody for a loop because it didn't jive with what the scoring sheets had. That was quickly corrected within about maybe an hour or two. But then we noticed, and this is where we're still at, as far as the public knows, they scored all of our events worth 100 points, even though there were two parters,
Right.
1B and 3B, which were to be 50 points each. Now, if you were an athlete that competed, you received an email shortly after the close of the competition on Sunday that from CrossFit showed exactly where everybody was, subject to video review and any other leaderboard changes. But up until now, that's all we've seen. So there is some movement on the website, but that again is not official because the scoring is still incorrect for the world to see outside of receiving this email.
Right. So what we're seeing on the website, which has incorrect data because it's showing 100 points on workouts 1B and 3B, but we're seeing movement there because there are penalties being distributed, and so there's
Assessed. Yes,
movement
correct.
assessed. But we're not, when we received the age group, the adjusted scoring via email, it was a static document. So that was correct at the time. That's currently outdated. And so when I'm looking at where the standings are in that, I've got that up on my screen right now. It does show corrected points, but those scores are not correct. I've even had a couple of
Yes.
people tell me about penalties that were assessed that are they were in a certain position. Now they're in a different position. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's very unsettled right now. And very
They're going
interesting.
to try and marry the two.
Yeah.
The website which shows correct from penalty assessments with the correct 50-point scoring for the two tests, put those
Yeah.
together somehow. They've thrown out the dates of what was that,
Mhm.
May 10th.
10th.
It will be finalized no later than May 10th, according to the email. I am, at this point, I'm not anywhere near qualifying position. So I'm watching at it from an interested fan, participant. But if I were sitting in like 8, 9, 10, 11, something like that, I'd be going crazy right now. So my thoughts go out to everybody, male and females, that are in those positions right now, waiting for these adjustments to take place. That
Yep.
has to be unnerving, especially without being able to see it in real time.
That's correct. As I was glancing through the overall scores, I think about in that eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th position, in all the ages, that is just one of those really log jam spots for some reason, where there's just a
Mm-hmm.
couple of points between each individual there. It's
Yeah,
really curious to see if we were to lay this out on a graph, but that those around that 10th place position tends to always be really tight. So I imagine those guys and gals are on pins and needles. And the reality is there's just
absolutely.
nothing that can be done until you just wait and see, where this ends up landing. In the next, I mean, really, CrossFit's got about 8 days, 9 days from now. I think it's a week from Wednesday to have this all nailed down. And, for me, I've had all 4 scores accepted. I've received those emails, and I've actually wondered, I got this suspicion today. I was always the impression that if I have received that video, that my workout is accepted, validated, and done. And I believe that's correct. Is that your understanding? If you received your video has been accepted or your score has been accepted, you're done with that video or with that particular score. Is that correct?
That has what has been for me in the past.
Okay.
If I received, I know that A, tell there was a view on the video, and B, I know my score never changed after receiving
Yep.
that email.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yep.
we're going to go. We're going to go with that. I mean, unless
Yeah, I
somebody
think
has a
that's.
different experience, it'd be interesting if somebody wants to chime in or leave a comment. If they listen to this, but once you receive your email, that's your check mark.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. So that's always relieving. I know that I got a couple of those emails very early. I think by the end of the day, Saturday, I'd had both of the first 2 events accepted, and then since then I've had all 4 accepted, which is a good feeling. It's always nerve-wracking. I've never had a penalty assessed. I have had a score adjusted. However, I'm not going to say I've never had a
Hmm.
score adjusted. In all the years, last year I submitted in a workout that had max reps muscle ups at the
Oh,
end of the workout. I only submitted the amount of muscle ups I completed, not the total amount of reps. Remember when I did that?
yes.
And I had,
I saw your
just
score post and it was the last place finish. I was like, what?
last place finish.
What
It
happened?
it well, one, I had many panic attacks thinking I just blown my opportunity to go to the games. It was unbelievable, and complete oversight. And two, thank God I wasn't the only goofball that put a score in wrong. It just, for whatever reason, the AMRAP portion is what stuck in our head, is just get as many reps as possible of muscle ups. And so I put in 39 or whatever it was. But I think the overall workout had, I don't know, over 200 reps as a buy-in before those
Yeah.
muscle ups. Whatever it was just so grossly off. But
Everybody was maybe in the 150s, 160s, and there's Jason with 39. I'm
39.
like, did he
People
did he fall off the
Yeah.
bar, or what did he
Yeah,
do?
people were asking, "Are you okay? Did you injure yourself? What
Yeah,
happened?" "No, I'm just, I'm a numbskull." Well, let's we have 2, things we really want to accomplish. One, we're gonna talk about the workouts because I really think these were interesting. We had, been able to talk about them on the previous podcast without having really tested anything, or you and I were talking strategy behind the scenes, but now we've had them and experienced these things. We could talk about that, and then let's talk about, the differing paths that you and I will have as we head into this summer season. So let's start with
excellent.
workout one. Why don't you start with that one and tell me, refresh us just the quick overview of the workout
Sure.
and
Quick over.
what that
Yep.
was like for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 1A was worth 100 points. It was a descending amount of rowing meters, double unders, and shuttle runs. Yes, it's the third time we've tested shuttle runs in each of the stages this year. We'll leave our opinions to the side on that one. And then that was a 25-minute cap. So you started out with your row, double under shuttle runs, came down in the rep scheme. When you completed the work, if you were to get it done before the time cap, you immediately went into 1B, which was worth 50 points, which was a max number of snatches in a 3-minute window. So if you finished at 19 minutes, you worked until 22 minutes. There was no rest, and we'll get into our experiences with the immediately finishing and immediately going in B. For both of us, the max snatch weight listed in the workout description for the younger categories was 225 for the males and 155 for the ladies. In our categories, it was 185 for the men and 125 for the ladies. So I knew it would be a stout test for me. Whereas your age group, it was going to be better collect yourself after you're finishing up of the shuttle runs and really get to work on the bar because you were going to need a lot of reps in your age group, given the strength of the athletes at moving 180. So
Yep.
it was a lung burner, basically redlined close to for the majority of it. There, think the separator in this was how fast were your shuttle runs, because a few extra seconds on a row could have easily been negated by maybe untangling your rope or, God forbid, a trip on the double unders or something like that. So really the separator, I think, was your shuttle run time. And whereas I thought my time was competitive, there were about 15 of us clustered within almost a maybe minute 15 seconds. So again, to me, that screams you just needed to run a little faster. How about for you?
I'm going to talk in reverse order of the way you approach this. The most interesting part was how clustered we were in our age groups. The 35-year-olds were in a certain very narrow time domain.
Right.
40-year-olds in another time domain. 45-year-olds were in our own time domain, and I found that to be fascinating. How blind I felt in that workout. I believe I got it done in 18 and a half minutes, 18:34, something like that. And there were so many of us clustered, like you said, within 20 seconds in front of me and 20 seconds behind me. There were a lot of us right there, and if this was an in-person competition, it would have been the worst because we would have been racing and literally exploding our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
In this
I
kind of
agree.
event. I almost prefer this one to be blind because I gave it everything I got. And at a certain point, if you were to take a picture of me, it would be hard to tell if I was walking swiftly or running because the pain and I really felt like a sloth going back and forth
Yes.
across the floor
Yep.
towards the end. And I remember when I was doing the 250-meter row, I was like, okay, this row is okay. And I get into the double unders, and the 25 double unders was just super simple. You
Noise.
just get through that.
Yep. Yep.
And then we get to those last 5 shuttle runs, and I was just straight up nervous about how terrible I was feeling. And now I've got to go do snatching for 3 minutes. I felt like death. And we're not going to complain about the shuttle runs, except I am going to complain about the shuttle runs.
Yeah.
um,
Okay. All right.
we we tested shuttle runs at around this similar time domain 3 times. The open was 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Quarterfinals was 18 or 19 minutes. This was 18 and 19 or 20 minutes, whatever. Why are we testing this monostructural movement so much. It
Well,
was
I
aggravating. And if it's not running. I'm a good runner. This isn't running.
mhm.
This is a whole different
It's
skill.
it's shuttle running.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
Uh,
which you can now say. I think everybody in the CrossFit community can say is a different skill than if this were written to say run 800 meters, 400 meters, 200 meters,
mm,
something like that.
mm-hmm.
That's a
Yep.
different mindset. And the my
100%.
I guess my complaint was the way it was mixed in is usually in years past your monostructural test has been rowing because that's the only machine that
Hmm.
they have used. But then you mixed rowing in with
Hmm.
shuttle runs, and that's where I just personally there was nowhere to hide.
No, and
It was straight up pain, and
yeah.
because you could mix the burpee box, the burpee pull ups in the open could
Hmm.
hide the shuttle run pain a little bit, but here it
Hmm.
was just
And
row double under and then shuttle run. There was just nowhere to go.
nowhere to go. And I agree. Yeah, and I'm complaining about shuttle runs. I'm complaining about the time domain, but I will completely agree that it was a good test. I mean, if we're looking for that monostructural, suck it up and suffer for 18 to 20 minutes, this was
Hmm.
exactly on point because my legs felt like cement. The pain and also the numbness that was from my legs down was
Hmm.
otherworldly. Like I haven't felt like that in a while. And again, like when I was on those last 5 shuttle runs, I crossed that last line and just thought, "Oh dear God, I'm so tired. How am I going to snatch?" And just like the open workout where we went right into max thrusters, I almost threw the first snatch over my head. I power snatched 185, but I treated it like it was I don't know, a 400-pound snatch. I gave it everything I got, and my fast twitch muscles all took off, and I mean, I almost threw it over my head. So I got under control, but what what I expected for this workout was I expected that once I got into snatching, the heart rate would calm down. I would start to find a pace and just chip through the snatches. And it was never that. It was a chaotic sense of panic of I don't
Yeah.
know what my time is. My judge was like, "Okay, your time ends at 21:34." And I can't fathom that kind of math at that high of a heart rate. Like I
Right.
kept looking at the clock and I'm like, I know I'm stopping at 21 something, but like the panic was high. I was in the middle of battle. I had no idea how much I had left. I just kept snatching and snatching and snatching. And I'd glance at the clock, which was meaningless because I had no idea what the actual time was or how much time I had left because it wasn't a round number. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
chaos and confusion.
That's when you needed your judge to say time. Yeah. Or
I know
30 seconds left,
exactly.
please. Yeah.
And God bless him. I understand his confusion because it just is not. If we would have pre-planned, like, okay, hey man, I'm gonna need you to tell me, every 10 seconds, once we're in that 3 minute, just count, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. I could have coached him on that. It just never occurred to me how confused I would be in that time. And then all of a sudden, people are shouting 30 seconds left, but I'm also with two other competitors at the same time who are on the same clock, but they're on a different pace because they finished the workout at a different time. So I don't know if people are yelling out 30 seconds to me or 30 seconds to one or the other. And I'm smiling because it was chaos. It really wasn't this chaotic. It was pretty well ordered and everyone knew what they were doing. But internally, with such a high heart rate, the panic was with the heart rate, zone 5 heart rate just beating through my chest, my panic mode and cortisol levels were through the roof by far. I mean, obviously,
Absolutely.
it's
Well,
that kind of
but
workout.
as much as we complain, we know when looking at the totality of the tests here at the end of the weekend, this checked the box, the long,
Yes.
as you called it, the long, metabolic test. You had to have something in this time domain.
Yep.
Now, what you put together in this time domain can be debated,
Yep.
but you had to check this longer box because you then got something in the 10-minute range and a 5-minute hard stop and then an
Hmm.
interval piece of interval work. So it all
Hmm.
balanced. And
Yes.
not being a programmer, it's from a novice's set of eyes. It sure looked like it was a balanced test. I don't want to run and row and double under again for a little while.
No, I'm good for a bit.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
okay.
good.
I would say it was you had mentioned that it was a slightly different test on the snatch workout for you. And I
Hmm.
think it's also that idea that the 35-year-olds had 225, 155, and they hit a certain amount of snatches. And then the 40-year-olds are going to hit a dramatically lower amount of snatches at that
Correct.
weight. And then my age group, we're going to hit a higher amount of snatches at 185 into your age group where this is a substantially heavier weight,
Hmm.
a lower number, right? And
Generally, on average, a lower number.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, on
Yep.
average, there's there's outliers on all these, of course.
Hmm.
But yeah, generally, so you were on the back half, at least in this scaling option, you were on the heavier side on really all the
Oh, without a
workouts.
doubt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, without a doubt. But hey, I did get 185 one time. I was happy about that. I know I needed a snatch
Hmm.
in that because we did have a few of our in our age group that didn't have one. But again, hats off to the gentlemen and even the ladies moving 125 in our age category.
Seriously. Yeah.
They moved it well.
Yep.
And I knew that was going to be a problem going in, but
Yep.
it's impressive to see those at the top and what they can do.
Well, and I imagine getting that one snatch is such a sense of relief and victory.
It was.
You know, yep,
It
yep.
was. Next
Well,
year.
next year, workout number two. So, workout number two was the strategy workout. If we wanted to think of a workout that was based on nearly 100% strategy, it was trying to figure out how we were going to break down these thrusters and ring muscle ups. So, the workout was written in such a way that it was as many reps as possible of thrusters and ring muscle ups, and you could do them in any order in any way that you would like, but you had to hit a minimum amount of thrusters and ring muscle ups in order to have all of the reps be credited to you. So you had this minimum work standard. That was one. That was also the tie break time, which can come into play on a workout that has, just a 5 minute time cap. So the reps aren't
Right.
limitless. So it was really a strategy on how do I get in certain age groups, you had to get, 15 thrusters, 15 ring muscle ups. Some had 15 thrusters, 10 ring muscle ups. The standards were a little bit different in different age groups, but you were trying to strategize how do I get the best tie break time? And then from that point on, how do I accumulate as many reps as possible? And I think that the entire planet agreed when it was all said and done and all of the strategy was out there in the public that you were going to try to get the ring muscle ups done. So, and just it's a thruster AMRAP at that point. I think that's how the
Right. Yep.
90% of the world did it. So for me, my experience was I had many different strategies rolling through my head Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I didn't even do the workout till Saturday morning. I woke up that morning with a different strategy in my head. And what I chose to do was I'm good at ring muscle ups. And I'm good at thrusters, but I know that the thrusters are going to be very taxing and the ring muscle ups are going to really get my heart rate going and are going to cycle slower than thrusters generally. So I want to front load the ring muscle ups. So I went with 9 ring muscle ups, dropped off, went over, did 5 thrusters, back to the rings. And again, I'm kind of pacing myself back to the rings so that I want to get 6 ring muscle ups and have them be absolutely done, but make sure that I get those 6. I don't want to break that up. So I got 6. That got me to my minimum requirement of 15 ring muscle ups. Got back to the thrusters. I did a set of 5. Then I did another set of 5, and that got me to my 15 and 15. So now
That
I've
was
hit
your
my
tie
minimum
break.
work requirement.
Yep.
Yep. Tie break time was around 210 or 215, somewhere around
Hmm.
that. That was exactly my plan, and I told myself I was going to allow myself to the 2 minute and 30 mark to recover. I knew I would be pretty breathy at that point. And then starting at 2:30, I was doing 6 thrusters every 30 seconds for the remainder of the workout. That was my plan. That would get me 30 additional thrusters for a total score of 60. That was my plan. And so I hit 6 thrusters at 2:30, glanced at the clock. It took me about 14 seconds to do that. And then I would rest 15 seconds. I did it again at the 3 minute mark, 3:30. At the 4 minute mark, I did 6, dropped it, and I decided I wanted to try to go for a little more aggressive on that last minute. So at about the 25-second mark, I think I did 5 thrusters, dropped it, looked at the clock, had 15 seconds maybe, and I went ahead and tried to give it another go, and I got 5 more thrusters. So in the last minute, I was able to, instead of accomplishing 12 thrusters, which was the original plan, I got 16 thrusters for a total of 64 reps. And I finished that, of course, collapsing on the floor, but felt like, again, it was one of these workouts where I had a plan. There was no chaos in this one. I knew my time. I knew exactly where I was at every point in the workout. And as I was going through it, my plan was working and my body was responsive. My body was doing exactly what I thought it could do in this workout. It was just one of those, I don't, it went so smooth that I actually recovered fairly quickly after it because there was no panic. I was very exhausted, but it wasn't one of those workouts where I was panicking. I was just chipping my way through and hitting the number that I planned to hit, and I got a couple of bonus reps because of a last minute strategy change in that last minute. But I was very happy
Yeah.
with it. Wasn't sure where it would end up, but it was just this was my plan. I executed it. I hope that's good enough.
Well, for those listening to the podcast, folks, that's a tactician right there. Let me just tell you that because I'm saying it out of, in a complimentary fashion because you also knew your capacity to move the
Yes.
135 bar, whereas not everybody does that and not everybody knows that. And it's something that we probably all should, because as I had a plan to get through my 15 thrusters and 10 muscle ups, which was my minimum work requirement. After that, I did not have that plan because I thought the 135 bar would wear me out, and it did. And I quickly was down to singles, as many as I could accumulate, and it just ate me up, because our tiebreak time was actually pretty close to each other. Only
Hmm.
you had 5 more ring muscle ups. I did 11 ring muscle ups right off the bat. I did one for insurance just in case.
Hmm.
Um, and it was not they were I was fresh. They felt great, no problems. Went over, did 5 and then 3, I think, and 3. I mean, muddled my way to 15. Let's put it that way. And where I never felt panic in that workout, but I felt time was slipping away because I could hear the countdown from my judge in my ear, and not having that laid out game plan of how many I thought I could do for your example, every 30 seconds. It was drop the bar, take a breath, pick the bar. And actually, with maybe 10 or 15 seconds left, I failed a thruster in the front rack at the bottom of the squat, which I don't think I've done
Oh.
ever. I mean, I was so out of it by that point. Um, so again, another lesson learned. It's okay to go in with a plan, and everybody makes that Mike Tyson joke. Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the
Mhm.
face. But it's also says something about your capacity and your awareness of yourself as an athlete. And what can you actually do when you need to, when the lights are on and the camera's running. So kudos to you on that. I took the different path, tried to hold on, and my score reflected it. Looking back, I wonder, knowing my ability to handle the rings, I know it jacks your heart rate up, but considering I was down to singles, maybe I should have gone back to the rings and just done 2 or 3
Hmm.
and back to the bar. So I will now kick myself for a while. Maybe my partner and I will test this another time, and we'll see. It's going to be hard to replicate the I hate to use the phrase "gun to your head," but the same feeling that you have when
Yeah.
you have to perform. You get one.
Yeah.
I like this. I didn't mind to choose your own adventure.
Hmm.
I think it would have been completely different for all age groups if it would have been 5 minutes of 10 ring muscle ups, 10 thrusters, and an AMRAP of 10 and 10 going back and forth. I think you would have gotten very different scores, and it would have hung more people up. I think there's where your higher
Hmm.
skill component would have messed people up that could move the bar. So, yeah, next
Yeah,
time.
and if we want to throw out the critique, and I think it's fair, there in that workout, I know that the idea is that there was a little bit higher skill in there, but even I don't think the minimum work requirements were adequate from a skill-based perspective in
Correct.
that workout.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
15 ring muscle ups for 35-year-olds, 15 ring muscle ups is nothing.
And even our
For
age
my
group,
age group, it's
10 was nothing.
yeah, yeah. Give us double that as a minimum work requirement, and then, but it's a limited. They were trying to hit this 5-minute
I
time
know.
frame, which makes
Yep.
sense. So
It's
I get where they're going, but more skill would have really made that one a bit more interesting.
it's funny. We won't take credit for this. I think the official CrossFit podcast that was speaking about these tests, it was either Chase or Adrian Conway that brought this up. Their critique was, why not increase the number of ring muscle ups in this test? Because in the open, if you were good enough to get through the retest of 14.4, you were asked to do 20 before you got to back
Yeah.
to the rower. So here, in theory, if you hit your minimum work requirement, you weren't asked to do any more than 10 or
Oh,
15. Yet you were asked to do more in
and
the open. So it just didn't. But
and
again, that was a longer time domain. I get that, but
and the ring
kind of
muscle ups in the
disappointing.
open, honestly, were way harder because you were so fatigued at that point. These ring muscle
Correct.
ups were
Yep.
nothing because we got to start with. All right.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. All
All
right.
right.
Workout 3 takeaway.
Test 3A and 3B, another two-parter. 3A, again, we called it DT style. It was not exactly that,
Mhm.
but it was 5 intervals of 2 minutes of work, and you had a minute of rest after each. It was a sequence of 7 deadlifts, 5 cleans from the ground, and 3 shouldered overheads. The working weight for the younger age groups was 185 and 135. So that was a decent amount to move in that fashion. For our age groups, it was 155, which is your traditional DT weight, and 105 for the ladies. At the beginning of every 2 minute interval, you had to begin again with the deficit. So it was work hard for 2 minutes, take a minute off, do that for 5 intervals, and then at the end you had 5 minutes to establish a max freestanding handstand hold, which was a new wrinkle thrown in. As we said last week, they tested it at 2020 games for the elites, and Wadapalooza had a variation of this for your age groups and for the elites on parallettes this past year. So if you had done your homework, you knew something like this was coming. It was the workout itself. I think really came down to barbell cycling, obviously. How much could you hang on for those 2 minutes and accumulate reps? There were some very impressive totals that were posted. And then the handstand hold, again, you just talked about this with the age groups. It was really neat to see how the 35 to 39 maybe were well in excess of a minute. And then as each successive age group went down, the times got shorter and shorter and shorter, as you might expect. But had I preferred handstand walks, sure, I'm sure a lot of athletes might have, but this took you out of your comfort zone, and it was a relatively newer skill if you weren't used to it, that you were being asked to perform under pressure. So, and the handstand hold, by the way, was in a 4 foot by 4 foot box. So you could move your hands. It didn't have to be static. But for me, once I had momentum going, that was the end of the hold because I would walk myself right out of the box. So it was hold on. And where I thought I had a good I established a good rhythm, good pattern in the first 2 intervals. I fell off slightly, but then as I looked in our scores in our age group, an extra 15 reps total added to the leaders' scores translates to about 3 extra reps per round, and that's just I think that's just being prepared and conditioning in this case, moving not a moderate weight barbell. How about you?
Yeah. It was the barbell cycling was interesting. It was really hard to gauge how this was going to go for 5 rounds. I think when we received the workouts on Monday, you had this thought like, I can't test this. This is too much for me to actually test. So I have to figure out how do I somewhat create a stimulus of this so I can get a feel for this workout, but without actually doing all the volume because it's very much a deload week. That became really challenging. I knew what was possible from practice. I did, when I was practicing, I'll just share that my practice was, I practiced a 2-minute round at 95 pounds, 1 minute rest. I did the same thing at 115 with a 1 minute rest, then 135, 1 minute rest, then at our actual working weight. And in practice, that working weight really knocked my socks off. I was like, wow, that is a powerful stimulus. I think I didn't quite get 3 rounds when I was practicing. So when it came to game day, my plan was to be really careful not to overdo the first round. This wasn't the type of workout where if you just kill yourself on round 1 and 2, you're going to die much later. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I had talked to a few other guys about strategy on this. Some people were saying that they had actually tested this workout, not people that weren't even doing the semifinals, but they had tested it. They tested this workout by going touch and go on the deadlifts. And then they tested it again later by doing singles on the deadlifts and had a significant increase in their score by doing singles, which made no sense to me because if I do singles, the inertia of pulling that barbell off the ground 7 times is not a rhythm. I'm used to cycling a deadlift or touch and go. So what I chose to do to try to manage my heart rate on this one, because I knew it was going to be very much a heart rate issue. Overall, there's going to be some capacity exposed, conditioning, but managing heart rate was my number one goal. So I told myself, I visualized in my head, okay, if I go 4 deadlifts, drop, take a breath, 3 deadlifts, drop, take a breath, single cleans, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, jerk, jerk, jerk. Once the barbell's in the jerk position, for me, cycling a jerk is a strong movement for me. So I could just jerk and that was really no problem. And then back to the deadlifts, 4 plus 3, then 5 singles, then 3 jerks. But if I could do 1 cycle every 50 50 seconds. Then I would get 2 rounds in by the 140 mark. This was literally my thinking. And then I'd have 20 seconds to do more deadlifts and more cleans and try to get to maybe 2 rounds plus 10 reps every round. That would get me to exactly 200 reps as a final score. I felt like 200 reps would be a decent effort on this workout. If I could hold that every round, I was going to be happy. So 3, 2, 1, go. We get into this thing. I finished the first round in 25 seconds. And I'm looking at the clock thinking, I have to slow down. I am slow down. Like I'm yelling at myself internally. So I slow down. I still finished the second round by a minute 10. I'm like, oh man, I'm in trouble. So I significantly slow down. I get through 3 rounds and I go ahead and do one more deadlift, stop, actually went and sat on a box in between every one of these rounds, closed my eyes, worked on controlling my breathing, getting that heart rate under control. And then 3, 2, 1, go. I slowed down. I got to where I was doing a round every 40 seconds, and I got through 3 rounds on the second round, 3 rounds on the third round. I was like, okay, let's just do this then. 3 rounds on the fourth round, and now my heart rate is not slowing down. I go into the fifth round thinking I'm in trouble. And I was falling behind. I was falling off pace. And with just a few seconds to go, I snuck in 3 touch and go power cleans and 2 jerks. So with that extra deadlift on the first round and missing one of the jerks on the last round, I ended up with exactly 45 reps per round, or 3 rounds per round, giving me a score of 225. And for me, just like event number 2, it went generally as planned. I had to slow myself down a little bit, but it went generally as planned, executed without panic. And that's always the way I want to do a workout. If I can get through something without panic, I'm gonna, in my mind, I win this particular event. It went as planned, as executed. And then when we get to the handstand holds, I actually laid on the ground for about a minute and a half. And people were like, guys, there's actually 3 of us doing it at the same time. The time is ticking. We all knew, but there was 3 of us actually laying on the ground. I eventually got up. I kicked up to a handstand. I think I did again, I'm good at handstands. This is a strength. I kicked up. I did 49 seconds on the first attempt. Felt good. Shoulders were really fiery. My forearms were on fire too. I just waited and waited and waited. And at about 4 minutes and 45 seconds into the 5-minute window, I kicked up to a handstand, and all we had to do was kick up to the handstand. As long as we had kicked up to the handstand, we could extend beyond the 5-minute window as long as we were in that handstand. And I held that second one for a minute and 6 seconds, which once I was down for that, I felt like that was going to be a very solid score for my age group. So workout 3, smooth, went as planned. And very technical. I knew what my capacity, or I felt like I knew what my capacity was. As I was testing my capacity in the workout, I could have adjusted on the fly, but I was also in a place after 2 or 3 rounds, I was like, okay, I think I can hold this. So let's just keep this pace. And it was very satisfying. To end with perfectly 3 rounds was satisfying. And honestly, I did this workout very last. This was Sunday morning. So to finish off with this, knowing that I think I put up 2 good scores, confident in my experience, that felt really nice. As opposed to event 3, event 4, which I did third, which was a totally different experience.
I was going to say we took a different order for the second half of this, whereas I did test 3 Saturday afternoon. Felt pretty beat up going into Sunday morning. But if you want to lay out the details for test 4,
Yeah.
I'll chime in on my experiance at the
That
end.
sounds good. Test 4, title. This workout is called Chaos Massacre on the floor. Punch in the face, square in the mouth. So this workout kicked it off. It had a buy-in and a buy-out of 20 burpee box jump overs on a 20-inch box for everyone. Believe that the 20-inch box was there because of the step-ups, having everyone do 20-inch box
Absolutely.
step-ups, which was great. I really appreciated that from a step-up perspective. It did not diminish burpee box jump overs, in my experience at all. They were still challenging. So 20 burpee box jump overs. Then you picked up a 70-pound or a 53-pound kettlebell, men and women's weights there. You held that in a goblet position, not on your shoulders or at your side, in a goblet position on your chest, which is a huge factor in this workout. And in holding that kettlebell in the goblet position, you do 2 rounds. This is a couplet of 20 box step-ups and 2 rope climbs. You did that twice. And then you went into another 2-round couplet of 20 goblet squats and 2 legless rope climbs. Again, holding that kettlebell in the goblet position. And then again, you've got the buyout of burpee box jump overs. I'll share my experience. I jumped into this thing with a teenager. She was very fast, very, very fast. And kudos to her. If her and her family listen to this podcast, wow. Just amazing, amazing performance. But 20 burpee box jump overs, that's fine. I got into the kettlebell step ups and I was moving as swiftly as I could because I knew that the kettlebell was going to be a factor. It was actually just the time under tension holding that kettlebell. So I did 12 and 8 on the step ups, and the rope climbs were fine. They were challenging. My heart rate was high this entire time. From the burpees, my heart rate just stayed very, very high. And once I got to the goblet squats, I actually felt really good about the squat. The squat felt phenomenal, but the weight of the kettlebell on my chest both restricted my breathing, and I could really feel it taking a toll on my arm stability, my biceps. Just it was really fatiguing. So I did 12 and 8 or 14 and 6, I think, on the first set of goblet squats, got to the two legless rope climbs, got them done, but they were significantly harder than any legless rope climbs I've ever done. And it was concerning. So I get back to the goblet squat and I go 9, 6, 5, and I take a couple sizable breaths between uh, these sets of goblet squats, get to the first legless, and it was max effort. And that's like my eyebrows are very extended right now. It was max effort on that first rope climb. That's a huge problem because I've got one more to do. And so I know that I cannot go. I can't do my second rope climb yet. I look at the clock and I'm waiting for my heart rate to calm down. I'm waiting for my arms to feel okay. And all I'm thinking to myself is, I am not going to do a rope climb until I know I can, because I do not want to do this again. Because I'm doing this workout on Saturday, there is this potential that I could do this workout again on Sunday afternoon, and there is no way I want to do this again. It was so hard. So I waited 30 plus seconds, jumped up, told myself I've got to get up this rope, and it was very tough. It was the last 3 or 4 pulls were big leg swings. I did touch that tape above the 15-foot mark, dropped. I got into the box jump overs thinking, okay, I'm going to do 10 at a moderate pace, and I'm really going to pick it up. And that never happened. It was 10 and then 10 at the exact same, what felt like a snail's pace. It hurt so bad that when I was laying on the floor after that one, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I was thinking, man, I don't know why I'm doing that. I don't want to do this anymore. It was so painful. Gratefully I got through it. I was very nervous that my score was just going to be not okay. I don't remember. I was 10 minutes and 15 or 18 seconds or something. And I just remember thinking to myself, I hope I didn't just blow it, because I really felt like I should have done better. But it was a swift punch to the face and then chaos through the entire event for me. Complete opposite of workout 3 for my experience.
Well, it's funny that I'll pull this back to something you said on test one, is you're kind of glad that you did that one in a vacuum, without competitors in each
Hmm.
lane next to you, like say, in your age group. Whereas I think this test four would have been extremely exciting to have an in live, to do it live in person against other people, because it would have been who's ready to go up the rope, looking at each other, waiting, you know,
Yeah. Waiting.
absolute
Yes.
race. Because here again in the vacuum, you didn't know. You just were waiting for yourself. You were waiting for your arms to tell you and be ready. But if you were on a competition floor and someone was next to you and they suddenly start up the rope, and you've got to go up the rope too, because they'll get a lead on the burpee box jump overs, and then it's somewhat a little tough to catch someone who has a 2, 3, or 4 rep lead on a motion like that, but on a movement like that. Because we did these out of order, this was my last and final test on Sunday morning, and by that point, I'd looked at the standings after test three. I realized that I was not in a qualifying spot, and I don't know if something flipped in my head, but it was, no pressure, go out, let's finish the weekend strong. I joked with you, I like this test the best, and it's because it didn't have a barbell in it, honestly. I think that's what that. I think
Right.
that's why I liked it
Yeah.
so much. I had heard stories about the be prepared for how hard the legless rope climbs would be, so that was in the back of my head. And I'll tell you a funny note from this, and I think if anybody's listening to this and had done this workout, maybe the same thing. The feeling of when you held the kettlebell in the goblet position and you went to do a step up, the kettlebell was so big, that 70-pound bell was so large that I couldn't see my feet, could not see them. I was stepping
Oh
blind.
yeah.
I was stepping blindly, and I'm not really a big fan of stepping onto a box, holding an awkward object out in front of me, and luckily I didn't trip. But there again is a reason why I think they instituted a 20-inch box for everybody, because I was blind. I'm sure others were too. But no, I broke the step ups up once each, I believe. I broke the goblet squats up maybe three times the first set, but then only twice the second set. I felt like I got into a good rhythm. I just really closed my eyes. I knew where breaking below parallel, where that is, and just listening to my judge count. And I frankly enjoyed the legless rope climbs. I mean, they were tough. No, there's no doubt about it. They were challenging, but I didn't feel like I was at a failure's pace point at any point in time on the climb. And then the last 20 burpee box jump overs, yes, they were extremely difficult. I was breathing rather hard at that point. And whereas I thought I was moving faster after watching my video, I realized I wasn't. But I got them done, and it was a heck of a feeling to stumble back over to the camera, pick up the whiteboard that I had the password written on, just so I wouldn't forget it in the heat of the moment, and say the final password and close the book on 2023's semifinals. So I'm glad I finished it on a positive note, and that's a takeaway that I know I told you about, and some others, especially my coach. It was a fun way to finish.
Yeah, really fun way to finish, and to shout "sandbag" at a camera, as silly
Sounds
as that
so
is,
goofy.
but it is. And on that workout, I felt like it. I actually felt like a big sandbag laying on the floor, in just absolute agony on that one. It was one of those workouts on paper where I remember thinking like, well, it's gonna be tough, but it's really, it's doable. It's totally doable. It's actually
Absolutely.
really a peculiar workout.
Hmm.
Who does when we do goblet squats and goblet step ups? That's just not, these aren't common
Correct.
training modalities right
Right.
there.
Right.
And wow, I tested the entire workout at half reps, which is not even close to the stimulus of the actual workout. That's what's funny, is I felt like I had done a fairly smart way of testing this one, and it wasn't. It didn't even give me anything near the stimulus
No.
that I experienced doing the entire workout. And I loved your idea of how you broke it up, found your pacing. That was really smart. And I think I wasn't looking forward to it as not being a barbell. And I think it's fun to have that mindset when you go into a workout of like, this is going to be fun in a certain way. And I think that mindset that you had going into it
Hmm.
may have helped you through the workout, because there was, maybe you didn't have a got to your head on that one because
I
you
knew where I
had felt
was.
that you weren't
Right.
in contention.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
but you had also had a lighter view of the workout. Like, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to have some fun with it. Where I'll
Correct.
tell you what ended up happening. For me, I typically, again, I was doing this workout on Saturday afternoon. I was trying to do as close to the password time as possible. So technically, I shouldn't have known what the actual rankings or scores were at that point. And I normally try not to know until I finished the third event, and then I glance at the leaderboard. I try not to put a lot of stock in it, but someone had walked over just before I started this workout, said, "Hey, Jason, you're in this place," and it actually it threw my head into kind of a spiral. It had me unfocused heading into the workout, and then I really wanted to overly push the workout. I was kind of running scared, and so my headspace had gotten a little bit goofy before the workout. And I just think about the contrast of your experience of that workout versus
Right.
my experience. And I don't think it has to do with as much with our capacity for doing the workout. I think it actually has to do with the headspace I went into it with was a bit more confused and
Correct.
unsettled. And yours was
Mine
very
was
settled, and I'm just
freewheeling
gonna have some fun.
and let's go.
I love
Absolutely.
it. I
And
love it.
well, I
Um,
mean,
yeah,
the contrast to the barbells is, each of the other three tests, yes, I could move the barbell, but I just felt like there was a sticking point, or I had a limit, and you just have to know yourself as an athlete. Whereas here, I'm
yeah,
holding a 70-pound kettlebell, which is not something I hold all the time, but it was uncomfortable, but I knew it wasn't going to stop me. So it was a matter of let's try to move fast through this. And it's all mindset. I think this sport is just as much mental as it is, the physical limitations come into play, but here's an example of where
yeah,
the mental limitations come into play as well too. So
very much,
that caps
very
off
much.
the
Well,
semifinal weekend.
we are done, and you know what I think we'll do, Rick? We're burning into an hour here, and we try to keep our podcast about within this time range.
Hmm.
So I know we mentioned that we would talk about kind of what's next on our plate. Let's save that for next week's episode. I think that'll be really good food for thought.
Absolutely.
I know that you've got a little bit of travel and you're going to have some thinking. I actually have travel as well. So we'll be able to sort of settle in and start to recalibrate
Mhm.
what the next small season looks like for us. I think that'll be fun
Correct.
to talk about next weekend. So, hey, semifinals are over. What's next? And we talked prior to kicking off the podcast. You were sharing some thoughts, and of course, I'm sharing some thoughts as well. But I think that'll be really fun to say for next week.
Right.
Agreed?
We'll have
Yeah,
ability to talk news, which will be even closer to finalized leaderboards. Give some shout outs to those deserving athletes in all the age groups that are at
absolutely.
that point, and and then we'll take a look at it from our two directions this summer, which is should
Fun.
be fun to comment on both. So let's do that.
Thank you for tuning into the Masters in Motion podcast. If you found this episode helpful, we'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app. Your support helps us reach more listeners and grow our Masters community. Until next time, get bolder, not older. See ya.